Good afternoon, I'm Dennis Ward. Welcome to APTN National News. We begin in Yellowknife, where it was a day of reflection and action on the impact of systemic injustices for missing and murdered Indigenous women, girls, and 2S LGBTQIA+ people. Our reporter Charlotte Moore-Jacobs brings us that story.
This sacred fire is lit in honor of missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls, 2S LGBTQIA+ people. Behind it, a monument dedicated to Inuvialuit, Dene, and Métis of the North, a symbol of the lives taken and the inequities that persist. A large crowd is gathering at the legislature in Yellowknife to honor Red Dress Day. Executive Director of Gender Equity with the GNWT, Sabet Biscay, challenges everyone to get to know the survivors and families.
When you know somebody better on a more intimate level, it's more difficult to be indifferent towards that person. Find out, get their names, find out about them.
Many carry signs, a reminder of the violence Indigenous women and girls face at home, in the workplace, and in the community.
It hits home for us because Charlene's a member of my husband's family, and when she was 15 years old, she went missing in and around Betchico, and there's still no sign, and we just wish people would speak up and tell what they saw, because somebody saw something, somebody knows something.
Executive Director of the Yellowknife Women's Society, Renee Sanderson, helped with a recent research report on unhoused Indigenous women in Yellowknife and the RCMP. It outlined how Indigenous women experience discrimination, distrust, underprotection, and fear in the community. Now, RCMP are on site to march with supporters.
We're working together and we're collaborating and addressing the issues that we brought up in the reports. I think we still have a long ways to go, but it's nice to see them a part of the community, and that's what we wanted from the beginning, to be a part of the community, to understand the challenges that our Indigenous people face.
Sanderson is remembering her cousin Amber Tuckaroo, who went missing and was murdered outside of Leduc. The family still has not found justice.
The families that were left behind, and to grieve and to wonder why.
She says more needs to be done to show vulnerable women and girls are valued and protected.
I think we need more supports. In the Northwest Territories, we don't have a treatment program facility, we don't have a trauma center. All the individuals who want to get help in dealing with their trauma or to go on that healing path, they're referred south. And I think being displaced from your family, from your support group, is challenging. We also need, adequate housing, affordable housing. A lot of individuals who go away for treatment, they come back and they don't have a place to stay.
The Red Dress event is concluding with speeches and a lunch at the Tree of Peace. Charlotte Moore-Jacobs, APTN National News, Yellowknife.
Meanwhile, it was a surprise plea in a Winnipeg courtroom on Monday from a man accused of murdering 4 Indigenous women. Jeremy Skibicki had originally pleaded not guilty to the killings, but as TR Wheatley shows us now, all that changed.
Jeremy Skibicki's lawyer stood up in a courtroom where he said that his client has admitted to the killings of the 4 women back in the spring of 2022. Now, his defense lawyers will argue that he is not criminally responsible because of a mental disorder, or NCR. Both sides agree this question will be decided by judge alone. Now it's the Crown's job to prove intent of the killings and the accused's mental capacity. Some of the families and their supporters were seen leaving the courthouse headed for Camp Morgan, named after one of the women killed by Skibicki, to share the news. Morgan Harris's cousin spoke on behalf of all families.
We've sat down many times with the Crowns. They explained everything to us ahead of time. So either way, we were confident, but, even more happier now that it's judge alone.
In winter 2023, Camp Morgan was started at the Brady landfill outside the city, where the partial remains of Rebecca Contois were found. The camp was set up after news that the bodies of 3 other women, Morgan Harris, Mercedes Myron, and yet to be identified woman given the name Buffalo Woman from Community, may be in the Prairie Green landfill. For over a year, the province and the federal government fought about who would foot the bill for the search. Just last month, they announced a combined $40 million for a search that's yet to happen. Despite not having the remains of all the women in this case, it was interesting to note what the Crown said inside the courtroom, that all 4 killings are similar in nature. Outside the courthouse, the accused lawyer Leonard Tallier said the latest developments should expedite the trial.
It's not a matter of happiness. The matter is to ensure that justice is done one way or the other, right? And that's what we're concerned with.
During pre-trial proceedings, the accused's defense tried 2 separate times to change this to a judge-alone trial, but Judge Glenn Joyal rejected both motions. Crown prosecutors say a jury is no longer needed because of the complexity of the NCR defense, and Skibicki has admitted killing the 4 women. Something family are grateful for because they say they no longer have to sit through a trial full of witness testimony and gruesome details.
My nieces, the rest of us, are happy we're not going to have to be put through that.
The trial will continue on May 8th. The judge has asked for the jury to come in on that morning so that he could thank them for their commitment and dismiss them. T.R. Wheatley, APTN National News, Winnipeg.
Now, for more coverage on this trial, which picks back up tomorrow, you can head over to our aptnnews.ca, where you can see stories from our web reporter, Kathleen Martins. To Alberta now, where Roger and Anthony Bilodeau, the 2 men convicted in the deaths of Métis hunters Jacob Sampson and Maurice Cardinal, each had their conviction appeals heard on Monday. APTN's Chris Stewart with the details now.
Roger Bilodeau was convicted in 2022 of manslaughter in the 2020 deaths of Jacob Sampson and Maurice Cardinal after a high-speed chase on a rural road involving himself and his son Anthony. Roger Bilodeau called his son Anthony and told him to meet him and to bring a gun. Roger Bilodeau was sentenced to 10 years in prison. Video security cameras caught Anthony Bilodeau shooting both men, and both Bilodeaus left the 2 hunters for dead. Anthony Bilodeau was convicted of second-degree murder in the 2 men's deaths and sentenced to life in prison with no chance of parole for 13 years. Today, a 3-judge panel dismissed Anthony Bilodeau's conviction and sentence appeal by a unanimous vote. Roger Bilodeau lost his conviction and sentence appeal by a 2-to-1 vote, meaning he has the option of appealing to the Supreme Court. I spoke to Gina Levasseur, the sister of Jacob Sampson and niece of Maurice Cardinal, for her reaction to today's decision.
It's really hard. It's very, very hard. It's a sense of relief that Anthony's conviction won't be overturned and that he will be staying there. It's a little worrisome because Roger's decision, there was 1 judge on his panel that was for his appeal decision, and so that means in the spring Roger can reapply. And every time they reapply, every time we go through this process, the parole hearings, the, visitation, anything that happens in these men's lives, we're informed and we are brought back to day 1 from when we lost the most 2 important people in our lives.
Roger is now on day parole, while Anthony is not eligible for parole until 2035. Back to you at the studio.
Thanks, Chris. The youngest elected chief of Enoch Cree Nation will now try to secure a seat for the federal Conservatives in the next federal election. That story and more coming up. Welcome back. Former chief of the Enoch Cree Nation will represent the Conservatives in an Alberta riding in the next federal election. Billy Moren won the Conservative nomination for the newly created Edmonton Northwest constituency over the weekend. In 2015, he was elected Enoch's youngest chief in modern history. Moren also served as the Grand Chief of the Confederacy of Treaty 6 First Nations. The election is expected to take place next year. The federal government is investing over $45 million into a landslide escarpment near downtown Whitehorse. The major landslide in 2022 sent debris down the escarpment onto an access road and into the Yukon River. Caused major infrastructure damage. The escarpment continues to experience slides caused by the impacts of climate change. The funding, which comes from the Disaster Mitigation and Adaptation Fund, will support revegetation, expand debris barriers, and implement anti-erosion measures, such as removing rocks and dirt. The federal Minister of Emergency Preparedness was in Whitehorse on Monday to make the announcement.
There are certain leadership within certain parties that still don't believe that climate change is real. And we're seeing the impacts right behind us having this. And these investments are absolutely critical.
Minister Sajan also made a separate announcement for flood mapping for the territory. The federal and territorial governments are investing $3.5 million over the next 4 years to advance the flood mapping in the Yukon. Flood hazard maps provide information to help prepare for flooding and mitigate its impacts. The Yukon has also experienced flooding every spring for 3 consecutive years. Flood hazard maps will help 14 flood-prone communities. The future of Kings Park Campground in northeast Regina was up for discussion at a recent city executive committee. As CTV's Haley Mandrick tells us, the land might soon be an area for Indigenous ceremonies to be held.
Kings Park Campground hasn't seen campers in a long time. However, life could soon return to this space in the form of an Indigenous ceremonial site after a moving delegation to Executive Committee from Elder Harry Francis.
Right now, I'm so happy I don't know what to explain and how to explain it, because it's something that a lot of us always thought about it, but working and forming a partnership with the city and the city staff. And you know, at the back of my mind, is it going to fly? I was always worried, is it going to fly or isn't it going to fly?
Following a unanimous vote in favor of redeveloping the site, it is one step closer to becoming a permanent place for ceremony.
We have a lot of urban Indigenous who are looking for connection to identity and ceremony and their culture. We have an Elders Advisory Council now to administration as well as council that is saying this looks like a good idea. We got a plan for implementation over 5 years.
Elder Francis explains that the space, well designated for Indigenous ceremony, would be open to everyone, a lesson of inclusion he learned from his grandfather and other community elders during his youth.
So, and they always said, we welcome all human beings, because all human beings are children of Creator, children of God. And that if they come with us and they want to follow our way, we are to accept them.
Because we've started off in a good way with a pipe ceremony and a sweat, we think that with that continual elders, advice coming into us, that we can set something up that will be enduring.
The 5-year plan for this site's development includes 8 sweats in year 1 and collaboration between Council and the Elders Advisory Committee to determine rules for the space. Council will vote on the recommendation at its next meeting on May 8th. Hallie Mandrick, CTV News, Regina.
Overseas now, a First Nations mother in Darwin says she's feeling lucky despite spending 4 months without a home. Her family is now one of 42 to be supported by a new housing affordability program in Darwin, where data shows the rate of homelessness is 12 times higher than any other jurisdiction.
Handed the keys to the new family home. This is a big day for the little family.
It's just a scary time trying to get a house through the rental market.
The family became homeless after leaving their last rental. In a housing crisis, finding a new rental was always going to be tough.
But yeah, probably went for about 15 to 20 houses and didn't hear anything back from any of them.
They've been living with family for months, but with a dozen people in one home, they eventually made the decision to send their eldest son away to boarding school.
We're both a hard-working family, so we try to provide the best for our kids, and that's all we just wanted to get an opportunity, and that's what Yili has given us at this time, and we're very grateful for it.
The little family are one of 42 to be accommodated as part of Yili Riyang Aboriginal Corporation's expanded housing program. Funded by $20 million from the Aboriginal Benefits account, the program is expected to make a difference.
It's pretty well known that, Indigenous people, our people, struggle to get in the rental market. There is some bias there. So I think this program will alleviate some of that for at least 40 families.
The First Nations home will be rented to low-income earning working couples in the Greater Darwin area.
Be able to offer to our people, the opportunity to move into these houses at a subsidised rental rate.
The wait lists for social housing in Darwin and Palmerston are now up to 10 years long and getting longer. The Territory's peak body for housing affordability and homelessness says it's seen wait lists in Darwin grow by 23% over the last 3 years alone. 87% of housing applicants identify as First Nations people.
The Minister for Indigenous Australians says the Commonwealth's $4 billion remote housing investment will help, as will the fast-tracking of new properties in Darwin and Palmerston as part of the $50 million social housing accelerator. For at least one family, the housing crisis is over. With rent subsidised at $419 a week, they can afford to build a life here and save for the long-term goal of buying a home. In Darwin, Letitia Lemke, NITV News.
Thanks to our relatives at NITV for that. Housing is the focus of one of our poll questions over on our website this week. We'd like to know, what is the biggest impediment for you to moving back home? There are 3 options there: housing, work, or other. Each week we add 3 new poll questions for you to have your say at aptnnews.ca. Time to step aside for another quick break. A major Indigenous fashion show took place in Santa Fe over the weekend, and we'll speak with the Cree Métis designer coming up. Welcome back. Indigenous designers and models are in Santa Fe, New Mexico for the annual fashion show that is part of the Santa Fe Indian Market. Among them is Cree Métis designer Jason Berg. We spoke to Jason earlier while he was in Santa Fe. Jason, thanks so much for being with us. As you can likely see, I'm not as up to speed on the fashion world as I could be, but I understand this Indigenous Fashion Week in Santa Fe is a pretty big deal. Can you tell us a bit about it?
Yeah, it's been really spectacular. Last night we opened, we were welcome to territory up at the governor's mansion, and everyone came out. And if you've ever been to Indian Market in Santa Fe, Swaya is definitely something to take in. Swaya is the 2nd largest art market in North America, and that happens in August. And there has been so much momentum in the space of Indigenous fashion that they're now hosting a week. So this is the inaugural, and people are excited, and the designers have brought their best. So it's a real honor to be here.
Yeah, I know lots of people down in Santa Fe right now. Sounds like quite the time. What does this week mean for an artist and fashion designer like yourself?
Well, you know, I'm just like so humbly grateful to, you know, present with other fantastic artists, and it gives us the opportunity to make our best and show our best. I think what I love the most about working in Indigenous fashion is getting to work in the community, getting to work with amazing young people. We have models that fly in from various nations across Turtle Island, and their spirit is as beautiful as their bodies, and it's just like so great that everybody comes just to share and be together and do their best on the runway. So it's great. It's really exciting.
Jason, can you tell us a bit about the collection you're showing off?
Yeah, I am honoring water. So the last 3 years that I presented here, I've really honored the Cree medicine wheel. So I'm Cree Métis from Saskatchewan. So we started by honoring fire. Ceremony begins in the east, and we honored yellow. Last year I honored red and earth metals. This year everything really points towards, you know, the transformational qualities of water. So blues are a big part of that story. Opacities in textiles is also a major point of inspiration. So yeah, that's really what I'm presenting this year. Copper too. Copper purifies water, so copper is a part of the aesthetic as well.
You know, Jason, often when we do something on the fashion world, it's because of somebody's on the runway or being shown somewhere like New York Fashion Week or something like that. But can you give us a sense, how big is the Indigenous fashion world out there?
You know, I really wanted Heather Strongarm to walk my runway for me. And she's from Saskatchewan, and she's First Nations. And 2 days ago, she walked for Ralph Lauren. You know, she's really only been in the modeling world for maybe 1.5 years or 2 years, and she's already closed Dior. She's walked for Versace a number of times. So, like, you know, it's like our sensibilities and our people are moving very quickly in the world of fashion, and they're making space So like major designers, as mentioned, Ralph Lauren just did a major collaboration with an Indigenous artist from here in the United States. So yeah, it's an exciting time. I feel like it's the genesis of a great movement that will make more space to tell our stories through our textile art. So it's profound. It's really powerful.
Yeah, that's really awesome. You know, we've done a lot of stories on how things have been changing in the literary world or on the screen. Are you seeing that type of momentum, I guess, on the catwalk as well?
100%. Tantu Cardinal actually is going to be part of our keynote discussion. Amber Dawn Bear Rope, she's from the Blood Tribe. She's from Alberta. She's the key curator here. And so we're having an Indigenous fashion symposium, and people like Tantu Cardinal and Serene Fox, including other great people who are not Indigenous, like Vicki Milner, who's here to be in a final discussion with Amber Dawn. Vicki Milner, she oversees the Canadian Art and Fashion Awards, so the CAFA Awards. So yeah, there's real momentum and real respect that is being garnished through events like this.
Really awesome stuff, Jason. Pleasure to get a chance to chat with you. Wish you all the best down there in Santa Fe and safe travels home.
Thank you so much. Have a great day.
One year we'll take the show on the road down there. A new episode of Face to Face is coming up tonight after the 6 p.m. Eastern newscast. But you won't be seeing me in the host chair this time. Our guest host, Sav Jones, will be talking with writer and actor Katarina Zervogel. The 27-year-old has been making waves in the entertainment industry recently. Zervogel premiered her first co-written feature film last year and also starred in the Marvel miniseries Echo. She shares how being part of both the deaf and Indigenous community has shaped her work and identity.
You know, in the past, deaf people weren't really allowed to use their sign languages. They were taken from their families, going to other schools as well. And that's a similar experience to Indigenous culture, where, you know, the Indigenous groups were not allowed to kind of be with each other as well. And so there's a lot of similarities in there, and just seeing how that impact of language deprivation, and you see that in between both of those cultures. And so when I think about that and having both of those cultures within myself, I really start wondering, you know, how that impacted my identity.
Looking forward to it. You can catch that episode of Face to Face tonight right after the 6 p.m. Eastern newscast. That is all the time we have for your APTN National News for this afternoon. For news anytime, though, you can visit our website, aptnnews.ca, and I will see you back here in just a couple of hours. Among the stories we're working on for your news tonight is word out of Ottawa that the controversial bill to recognize certain Métis governments is facing some changes. I'm Dennis Ward. Marcy McGuitch, thanks for joining us. Enjoy the rest of your afternoon.